This is chapter 5.4.3. We are talking about causality and stability. We'll first explain what is a causal system. A causal system basically means that the system only produces outputs that are dependent on its past input. Causal system cannot see future values. Okay, and therefore y of n is only dependent on x of n. It cannot depend on future x of n or x of n plus 1. It can only depend on x of n and of x of n minus 1, n minus 2, and so on. So if you look at the general convolution equation, then you realize that y of n is dependent on x of k, where k goes from minus infinity to infinity. It's trying to look at all the inputs, and if we are only restricted to use only past values of x of n, then we are only saying that it must be using x of n minus k. So never mind, let's shift this equation around. X convolved with h of n is the same as h of n convolved with x of n. So now we're writing it in this form. If we are restricting x of n to be only the past value, therefore cannot be n plus k. So what happens is that if we let k equals to 0 to infinity, then it will be x of n minus k. What this also means is that the index k cannot go to negative, because if it's negative, it will be x of n minus k. It will become future values. So you realize that this equation went from here to here when we are talking about a causal system. Now, it also affects this guy. It also means that h of k can only from 0 to infinity. Therefore, the impulse response is only causal. So a causal impulse response also implies that we are only using past values of x of n. So this is the diagram that says this. You can think of it this way. Let's send an impulse as an input to a system. Out comes the impulse response. If the impulse response only exists on the right hand side of time 0, because we are firing the impulse at time 0, therefore the system is now responding. We call such a system a causal system. The output can only depend on the current input. It's not dependent on future input. Now you look at this diagram, it's very strange. If you are only firing the signal at time 0, why is there a signal here? Why is there an impulse response? Such system don't exist in, of course, in real-time system, but you can design a system like this, assuming that you can see future values. And you can see future values especially when you have recorded the whole signal. For example, if you have recorded a recording, you know what I'm going to say in 5 seconds later, 2 seconds later. Anyway, you can use the future recordings to modify my current recordings. So this is possible only when the signal is not for real-time system. In real-time system, we are only dealing with causal impulse response. So this is anti-causal because although the input is fired here, the response have already come. There's a both-sided, which is non-causal as well. So if it only exists on the left side, it's called anti-causal. If it exists on both sides, it's called non-causal. So to reiterate, a causal system basically means that when I fire the impulse then starts to be active. And this also implies that my hk only exists for positive index, and when that happens, I'm only dealing with my current xn and past values. Thank you.